here with the Oracle Outlook for the week starting November the 6th, 2017. This week I wanted to work with Lenormand, so the deck that's going to be assisting me for this week's reading is one of my favorite Lenormand decks, and that is the Lilac Dondorf Lenormand. It is a self-published reproduction deck, so I will leave information about it in the description box below. So I have the deck on hand, and I'm going to go ahead and shuffle the cards. And as I do every week for these readings, my intention and question is always, what do we need to know for the week ahead? I'm feeling that will be great. I'm going to go ahead now and cut the deck. And fan out the cards. And now I'm going to be picking 5 cards, because I always work with a line of 5 when I work with Lenormand. So I'm just looking for 5 cards in the fan that are getting my attention. And we have 4, and just pick the 5th card. So we have the card selected. And I'll put the remainder of the deck to one side. So when I work with Lenormand, by now everyone knows that I always start with the middle card. For me, the middle card represents the central issue for the week, or what we're being asked to focus on. So looking at the card, we have, this is interesting, so we have the Gentleman card in the middle of the line. So this reminds me of last week's reading, which was a Kipper card reading, and we had the main male show up. So the Gentleman card is the main male of Lenormand. So typically this represents a man who's significant in whatever unfolds this week, because the Gentleman card is a significator card. So if you're a woman, I always say this, if you're a woman watching this video, the Gentleman card can represent a man who's significant to you. And if you're a man watching this video, the Gentleman card represents you. So I always read with direction in mind. So the Gentleman card is facing the left. So what will be is that the cards that are on the left of the line will be what he's looking forward to, or some aspect of his future. And that the cards that are on the right will be what is part of his past, or what is now behind him. So again, the Gentleman card can represent a man. So if you're a woman, then this would be a man who's significant to you. And if you're a man, then typically this would be you. So the other thing that I want to say about the Gentleman card in relation to the surrounding cards, which we're going to take a look at in a moment, is that the surrounding cards will either do one or two things. Either they will describe more about who the man is as a person, or they will be talking about some things that are event related, some of the things that he either has experienced or that he will experience, you know, some actions he could be taking. So now let's take a look at the surrounding cards. Starting with the card on the far left, we have clouds. Then in between clouds and Gentlemen, we have we have the Lady card. This is going to be so much fun. Okay. And then on the other side of Gentlemen, we have Mountain. And then on the other side of Mountain, we have Tree. Okay. This is going to be very interesting. So I want to say the reason why I'm thinking this is going to be very interesting is because, little backstory here, because there are no accidents. You know, as long as I've been reading cards, these kinds of things prove to me that there are no accidents. You just can't make this stuff up. So the interesting thing about this particular deck is that it has 2 Lady cards and it has 2 Gentleman cards. And the interesting thing about each one of those is that one is facing to the right and one is facing to the left. So you can have, you know, the idea here is if you're doing same-sex relationship readings, you would have the possibility that the 2 gentlemen would show up in a reading possibly looking at each other, and the same as the 2 women. So I purposely switched out the Lady and the Gentleman card, because when I'm reading with this deck for myself, I tend to like to have the Gentleman facing to the right. But in my mind, this was the thought I had. So I said, let me switch them out so I can have the Lady facing to the right, which would be her future, and then the Gentleman would be facing to the left. And the reason why I did that is because the majority of my viewing audience is female. So I was thinking with that in mind in regards to the lady card. I wanted to have the lady card facing to the right, so this way she would be able to see elements of her future. So, but it's just very interesting that I had that thought prior to using the deck, and then the two cards that I swapped out are in the line. So, okay, so now there's a nice way for me to talk about what I do next. And so I usually, after I look at the middle card and then I uncover what the surrounding cards are, I go one step out. So the card on the immediate left of gentleman is the lady card. So the lady card, just like the gentleman card, is a significator card, and it typically represents a woman. So if you're a woman watching this video, the lady card would represent you, and if you're a man watching this video, then the lady card would represent a woman who is significant to you. Now, the interesting thing about this is that the lady and the gentleman card are facing one another. So here we have a situation where there's a woman and a man who are playing a center role, or they're going through an experience where each one is playing a significant part in relation to the other person. So this could actually be a relationship between a man and a woman, right? Could even be playing on the closeness of the cards. It could be a relationship between a man and a woman that is getting closer, right? It could also be, too, if it's not about a relationship, because, you know, we don't have the heart card in here, or the ring card. Those are, you know, relationship cards, significant relationship cards. So since they're not present in the line, it could just be that there's a situation with a man and a woman, and that they're in agreement about it because they are facing each other. They are, like, you know, facing each other. They're eye to eye on it, that kind of thing. So here we have, again, man and a woman who are becoming closer in relation to a situation that each are playing a significant part to. So now let's take a look at the surrounding cards. So the other card on the other side of gentleman is mountain, right? So mountain is a card that can represent a challenge, an obstacle, a block. That's my typical go-to keywords for this card. It can also be about a setback or some kind of delay or something being postponed. So now, if we take the gentleman card, because remember now, I read everything in relation to the center card, right? So here we have gentleman, and then mountain was behind him. So this could be a prior challenge, a prior setback, a prior delay, you know, an obstacle that the man has that, you know, he has probably overcome now that it's behind him. That's typically how I would read this in relation to direction in mind, right? Now, describing the man, this could represent a man who's remote or distant, because of mountain for me can represent remote or distant locations, right? So there's that. It could also be a man who's a challenge, so it's a challenging man, that kind of thing. So those are ways that I would look at mountain and man as a pair. So now what I typically do is that I tend to look at the cards that are immediately flanking the center card as a pairing. So here we have lady, right? So now remember, if we take man out of the center, we have the lady facing the mountain card. So this could be representing a woman who is facing a challenge, right? So, and it could be that a woman is facing a challenge in the form of a man, right? If we put the middle card here, she may be facing off with a man, and it has to do with some sort of challenge. She could also be saying, too, like she is experiencing, taking the gentleman card out, she's going to be experiencing a setback or delay, but it could center on her relationship with a man, right, if we take all the cards into account. But typically, since she's facing the right and the mountain card is on the right, it would represent that there may be a challenge, a setback, a delay, or some sort of postponement that she will be experiencing. Now, the good thing about mountain is that this card says while there may be a block, it may be a challenge, it may be an obstacle, it's not insurmountable, right? It just may take time for her to overcome it, right? So that's how I would read the pairing of lady and mountain. And so now we'll go the next step out. We'll take a look at the outer cards. Card on the outer left is clouds. Now, clouds is a card for me that is known, I read it as, or I tend to look at it as, the most challenging card in the deck. right? So clouds can represent confusion, can represent uncertainty, it could represent being unsure of something, it can also represent doubt, right? So there's that. Now, if we go with the idea here that the gentleman card is facing the right, then the gentleman is going to be experiencing some sort of confusion, some sort of doubt, some sort of uncertainty, right? It could also represent too, like possibly if we describe him as a person, then it could be somebody who's forgetful, somebody who seems to be in a fog, somebody who's in a haze, you know, that kind of thing, because I tend to look at clouds as a mental atmosphere kind of card, you know, because the element air, so it talks about like mental capacity. So it could be a man who is forgetful, you know, who has memory problems, who's easily confused, that kind of thing. But I'm just going to go with the fact like he's going to be moving towards an experience in which he will have some sort of confusion, some sort of uncertainty about it. Maybe he's unsure of himself going forward, or that he's going to have some doubt. Now, if we go with the other side, we put the lady in the middle. So now it could be saying too, for him, now remember we talked about on her side that there's going to be some sort of setback or delay or something being postponed that involves a man, right? For him, it could be there's a sense of doubt, uncertainty, confusion regarding a woman, right? Because the lady card is in between the gentleman card and clouds, right? So it's very interesting. So whatever the situation is this week between this man and this woman, it's not going to be easy for them on either side, right? Because they each have a challenging card coming after them. He had the mountain card, she has a clouds card, right? So there is some sort of doubt or uncertainty pertaining to a woman possibly. And as I'm looking at the cards, here's another thing that just popped up, so I'm going to pull them back up for a minute. Now, the interesting thing to note about clouds is that there is an inset of the King of Clubs. So clouds can also be what's called a face card, or it could represent another person. So now here we have a situation that may involve three people, right? So it could be two men with a woman in between them. So it could just be a matter of maybe possibility here that a woman is, you know, finding herself in between two men, right? And, you know, I'm dating myself. So for those of you who may get the reference, I'm hearing the song in my head, Torn Between Two Lovers. It's a very old song. So there may be something having to do with a relationship where a woman is actually torn between two men. So there's that. And that would make sense with the clouds being behind her, because that represents on her side, she's uncertain. Right? So now let's take a look at the last card in this line, this interesting line. And here we have Tree. So Tree is a card that can represent health. It can represent healing. Those are my typical go-to keywords with this card. Another thing about the Tree card, this card can represent life, right? It can also represent something that's taking time to grow and develop. I tend to look at this as a growth and development card. So the Tree card can represent, you know, a personal growth and development cycle or a spiritual growth and development cycle. You know, so there is that. Now it could be too that going with the idea, if we pair the outer cards, so here we have Tree on the end and clouds coming before it. So there may be an issue having to do with healing one's memory or one's ability for recall, because clouds, remember, can be about confusion and uncertainty. And I talked about the idea of maybe possibly being in fog or haze or a daze kind of thing, right? So there is that. Now, if we go with health and healing, there may be some confusion or uncertainty about one's health, right? And so it could just be a matter of there may be some information that needs to be gained. Now, another aspect of Tree for me that I tend to look at is I tend to look at this idea about, you know, ancestry, lineage, history, because I tend to look at Tree as like family tree, and family in the sense of like extended family. So there may be some uncertainty or some confusion or a sense of doubt about one's maybe medical history that needs to be cleared up, right? So I'm thinking like, so there could be like having to do with memory, going with clouds, or it could just be a matter of being unsure about one's health, and it involves maybe needing to examine one's family history to get some more insight as to whatever this medical situation is, especially if they find out that it's something hereditary. So I'm seeing that as possibilities, but it could just be healing for some confusion or uncertainty, because again, this would be confusion or uncertainty is healed. So there is that. And it could also be too, if we go with the idea that the tree can represent health and healing, then remember the inset of clouds has the King of Clubs. So this card can represent a person. So it could represent somebody who's a healer, or somebody who is part of family, but maybe extended. So there's that possibility. I don't want to mix up the order. If we go with the idea that going with direction, then the Gentleman card has the Tree card behind him. So this could be maybe a man who is either a healer, or was a healer in his past, or maybe needs to do some healing around his past. Right? So there's that. If we go the other way around, the Lady card would be facing Tree. So then she would be the one who is facing healing. And it could be whatever it is that she's facing is that it's going to take time to grow and develop. It could be saying too, like, she may need to have some patience. Especially too, because we go with the idea that the Mountain card is between her and the Tree, right? These are the things that she's facing. It could be, the healing could come, but after a setback or a delay or something being postponed, right? So what I'll do now is we'll read the cards in forward narration to see what else they might want to shed light on. So here we have a situation where Clouds is the opening card. So Clouds is a card that can represent confusion, right? Something uncertain. So it could just be saying too, like, we're moving through a situation in which we may be not sure of something, we may need to be getting some information about something. Clouds is a good card to have in this respect, that it represents something that is fleeting in nature, right? The uncertainty, the doubt, the confusion is fleeting in nature. The clouds will part, and we'll be able to see much more clearly once they do. Then moving to the next card, we have Lady. So Lady is a card that represents a woman, right? So there's a woman who may be, wanting to move beyond this space of uncertainty, doubt, confusion, because Clouds was the card that was touching her, closest to her. The middle card is Gentleman. So as the middle card represents a man who is significant, so there could be a situation in which he plays a central part, or there is some focus on a situation involving a man, especially for a woman, because now remember, the Woman card and the Gentleman card are facing each other. So there is a situation unfolding that represents maybe some sort of confusion or doubt between a man and a woman. They need to have worked out, right? Then moving forward, we have the Mountain card. So there may be some sort of setback or delay, some sort of block or obstacle in this situation between a man and a woman. And it would be too, especially if moving to the Tree, there's some healing that needs to take place. So it could just be saying too, overall, could be a situation between a man and a woman. They've had some sort of challenge, setback, or delay in their relationship, regardless of what the level of intimacy is. It's now moved into a state where there's, on one side at least, a sense of uncertainty, doubt, or confusion about it. But whatever the situation is, it needs to be healed, right? And with the Tree card being the last card, it's going to take some time, because Tree takes time to grow and develop. It represents having some sort of patience with that. So on that note, I will end and round out this week's Oracle Outlook. I'm Jameson Mitchell, and as I close, I'd like to thank you for sharing space here with me for this week's reading, and I look forward to sharing the same space with you again in our next video reading together. So until then, I'm hoping that you have a wonderful day, and I'm hoping that you have a wonderful week. Take care.